This is going to be a fun episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast. I have a returning guest, Trent Cotton, with me to talk about how AI can make you a super powered recruiter. And he has gone in, done a deep dive. I felt like I was an expert on using AI. I just got done reading his book last night, and I feel like I am a slacker when it comes to the amount of stuff that I can get done and that I can now get done with utilizing artificial intelligence. So Trent, welcome back to the podcast.
I know it's been a while. It's been a while. You're always one of my favorites to come back to.
So real quick for the listeners, I know we typically do a fun deep dive on how Trent even got started into the wonderful world of recruiting, but so that we can focus on actionable stuff. Make sure to go back to episode 40. And Trent talks about how he, landed in the wonderful world of recruiting, how he really focused on recruiting, the track towards a recruiting manager, the track towards agile. And my God, if I remember back when I was an internal recruiter, if I actually implemented this agile methodology that he had in recruiters for internal recruiters, it would blow away some of the GovCon organizations I used to work on. So definitely go back and check that out.
Yeah, yeah. Trust me too. And it's funny whenever I do consulting with clients and we go through and I'm trying to help them understand the benefits of applying sprint recruiting or agile recruiting. It's almost like I get PTSD when they start walking through their process. And I'm like, okay, let's just talk about how we're going to do it going forward. Yeah, I don't want to go back there.
So we'll jump on some sprint recruiting down at the very end because I know there's a lot of every
Perfect.
single person that I've actually talked to about Trent's stuff. They're like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? But becoming a super powered recruiter with AI, how do you do that? What do you do? What do we need to know?
Right. So I always like to start with an analogy because there you have kind of two schools of thought in HR and specifically in recruiting about AI. You've got the doom and gloom that, kind of look at it as Terminator. It's going to take your job. It's not reliable. It's just the end all be all of doom. And then you've got the others that just kind of want to jump all in and not really do some of the due diligence. I fall right in the middle. So any kind of AI process that I use or tool that I use, I manage it just like I would anybody else on my team. I inspect what I expect. I think that's due diligence that all leaders need to have and all recruiters who want to use AI. That's something that you need. That's a core concept that you have to employ whenever you're looking at any kind of AI solution. But I always like to use the imagery because I'm a visual person. I love Tony Stark on Avengers. Iron Man. He's a badass, right? He is a self-made billionaire. He invents. He's innovative. He's a hell of a business person. He's cocky. He's charming. He's sexy. He's everything that you ever want to be. So if you look at him compared to most business people, he's already head and shoulders above his peers. But then whenever he straps on that Iron Man suit that's got Jasper, I think. Yeah, Jasper is the name of his AI. Then he becomes a superhero. But notice one thing. He uses AI to give him additional information to be able to make a data informed decision. And that's how I view AI is I don't want it to do my job for me. Maybe some parts of my job, the non-valuable, mundane stuff, if I can get AI to do it and do it more efficiently, hell yeah, I'm going to send it over, but I want it to be able to give me additional data points that maybe I'm not thinking about, so that way I can make better data informed decisions. So that's
Awesome.
that's kind of the big thing of before we get into how AI can help. Let's set the table or kind of create. This is the vision that we want to go into.
I love, Tony Stark was, at least one of my favorite superheroes. And
Oh yeah.
before we do a deep dive into this, if you want a really good laugh, many years ago when I was working for Lockheed Martin, which, Tony Stark's logo is a little bit of
Oh yeah.
somebody,
Yeah.
I doing a presentation in front of, I think, like 50, 60 people at Lockheed Martin, and somebody switched all the Lockheed Martin logos with Stark Enterprises.
Oh, I love it.
So about halfway through, everybody's like, hey, who are we working for again?
Right. Yeah. Was there an acquisition I didn't know anything about? Yeah. Well, I like it because it's just, too, I mean, you know, whenever I think about myself in a meeting, there's a lot of Tony Stark comments that I'm just like, I just made everyone uncomfortable in the room. no one's laughing but me. So maybe that's why I identify with him. Maybe it's not the AI. Maybe it's just he's a cocky SOB, and that's who I feel I am too.
Awesome. So the foundation, like what do we us
hmm
recruiters need to do?
One, get over your fear. Uh, and I had it too. So let's talk about one of the ones that's out there that a lot of people can have access to and should at least go and tinker around with, and it's ChatGPT. I saw all the hype about it because I follow a ton of stuff about AI, and I was like, that's for nerds. Forgetting that I'm a nerd myself. It wasn't until someone on my team did something, and I go, "Where did you get that?" Oh, well, I ran it through ChatGPT. I was like, "Oh, you use it? Why don't you teach the other team members in our next team meeting? Why don't you? I'll give you 15 minutes. Just walk us through how do you use it." And it was just simple things, rewriting an email. English is a second language for him, so he uses it to check his grammar. Um, and it just got me thinking, okay, well, if it can do stuff like that with some pretty decent accuracy, there was still some editing that needed to be done, but it was fairly accurate. It took no time to do. Then I started noticing a lot of marketing people. They would have little ebooks or little prompts of, hey, did you know that ChatGPT can do this for marketing? It can create a marketing strategy. So, of course, the way that my brain thinks is if this, then that. So, if it can create a marketing strategy, it should be able to create a candidate marketing strategy. So then I just got in there and started fooling around. I was looking at what other people were writing for business stuff and saying, okay, well, let's apply this to talent. And started to really just kind of fall in love with the possibilities. And that's why I created the ebook is just, and in the ebook, what I do is just say, this is what I wanted to do. Here's the prompt that I used, and here's what the outcome was. So you can literally go in and say, I need to recruit data scientists in Dallas, Texas. ChatGPT, what are 5 subject lines for an email that would attract a candidate who's a data scientist in Dallas, Texas? And it goes through and it gives you 5. Okay, I like the 5. Make them funny. That's all I got to type. Make them funny. And it goes through and it makes them funny. All right, add some emojis sparingly because I want to catch their eye. It goes in and it does that. And then I can look and say, I really like number 3. ChatGPT, using subject line number 3, write an email of no more than 250 words. Make the tone business casual. You can even, what's really funny, if you want to kind of have some fun, you can go rewrite the email as Snoop Dogg. It's loved it. I've done Snoop Dogg, I've done Snoopy, I've done Bugs Bunny. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours I've lost trying to figure out what kind of tone of voice. But I mean, it can change the tone. So you can be incredibly formal, or you can be business casual, or you can be very casual. And do I use 100% of what it does? No, but it starts to get me to kind of think, oh, I never would have thought something like that. So then I was thinking, okay, I wonder if I put in Ben's LinkedIn account versus my LinkedIn account, would it tell me who had the most, or who would be the better candidate? Let's put it that way for a data scientist. Ethically, it's going to tell you I can't do that. But what I can tell you is that Trent has 8 years of experience in data science, where Ben has 7, and it goes through and it just kind of factually lays out the differences between the two candidates. So I'm not getting it to make a decision for me. I've got 5 or 6 different candidates. I'm going to call the ones with the most experience first. Chat GPT using LinkedIn goes in and does it, and I have a ranking. So great. Now I can go and plan my day who I'm going to call first. Just it's like my little assistant. If I've got a tickle in the brain and I want to find some type of, psychology studies about change management, hey, go in, write me an article based on psychology articles on change management, no more than 500 words. Create an outline in the beginning, and it goes and it does it. So while I'm talking to you, whenever we get done, I can go back and look and go, oh, that's right. I don't like point 3. So rewrite, eliminate point 3. It goes in and it does it for me. So it's just the sky's the limit with it. But my favorite one is Snoop Dogg, by the way.
Well,
You
percentage
have to try
wise,
it.
I'm going to try Snoop Dogg. I'm
hmm
going to try Snoopy as soon as we're done with this interview.
Absolutely.
When you think about recruiters using ChatGPT and AI, what do
hmm
you think is the percentage of people out there actually using it?
Oh, it's minimal. It's minimal because whenever whenever I did the ebook, I actually sent it to like 10 or 15 people that I'm always like bouncing things off of. I'm not going to say you're included in that, but whenever I said, "Are you using ChatGPT for it? Here's a free ebook," just kind of give me some feedback on it. I had 3 or 4 people that I knew for sure would have said, "Oh, it's about time you caught up with this." That said, "I didn't know it could do this." I mean, it just really kind of blew my mind. So I think using ChatGPT, we're looking at maybe 15 or 20% of the recruiter base that's actually using it. Broader AI, I think people are using more AI than they know. So
Okay.
if you're using a sourcing platform, chances are the good ones have got AI and machine learning built into it. We were talking about like so earlier, they've actually got an ATS that's got and machine learning built into it. So this is becoming the norm. And in our business at Hatchworks, I mean, we're going all in on AI and machine learning because we know that that's the way to modernize current platforms, and it's also a way that we look at, how do we increase efficiency of our developers by not doing the same task over and over again. We use AI and ML to be able to automate that, and then turn around and advise our clients the same. I think a lot of that's going to come into HR and the recruiting industry very soon.
I just had to ask because I honestly feel like I'm in a bubble where everybody's playing with it.
No, no, you're not. You're not alone. You're not alone. Actually, I think there are there are several people that I see, post stuff and I go, that's interesting. Where did they come up with that? And of course, it's, I used AI to do this for me.
I will say personally, I think about 25 to 50% of my LinkedIn posts are actually written by AI and AI prompts.
Hmm.
But
Yep,
like, at least for me, like, yes, I do put a lot of my own like words into stuff. I make a lot of my own posts, but using AI to be omnipresent has actually helped with my recruiting also.
it has. And sometimes it's, I want to reshare something that I had maybe written 2 months ago and I want to do it differently. And I am brain dead. I can go in and put the link of the blog post in there and say, write a very unique, eye catching LinkedIn post with the keyword X. No sooner, no more than this many lines, and throw emojis in as bullet points. And it does it for me. That's time saving for me versus, okay, how do I rewrite this or how do I copy and paste and do it a little bit differently? Just create me something new. And I go through and I edit it because I have a very distinctive voice. AI doesn't cuss, I cuss. So I, of course, have to add things in there. But it saves me time, and a lot of times too, it gives me really, I'm like, that's really interesting. I wonder where did it pull that from? And it's almost like I'm learning from AI and how it's doing stuff where I can apply some of those lessons to other aspects of business. That's where the real benefit comes in.
Did you write ChatGPT, the book for recruiters, because you started
Yes.
realizing that not everybody was actually using AI and they should be?
Hmm. Yep. And I wrote it also too for me because I was on this journey. I was chasing a rabbit, and I have a really bad habit of doing something and finding something amazing and then not remembering how in the hell to do it. So to me, it started out as kind of like a little cheat sheet of cool things that I found. And then I was thinking, okay, well, why don't I, I can turn this into an ebook and share it with recruiters who want to, kind of up their game a little bit or at least reprioritize because, whenever I think of, the span of leadership, of leading recruiters, the best ones sucked at process. They sucked at it because they loved the people, right? Same, same. It's really awful to be the VP of talent and culture and to screw up an offer letter like I do. I mean, it is the basic thing that we're supposed to do. And I always have to have someone look it over because I'm like, I know I made a mistake. Just fix it and send it back to me. But the good recruiters want to form that human connection and find that right career connection with the company. There are so many things that AI offers to allow them to really focus in on what's great, even going in and saying, hey, what kind of post does Ben normally talk about? So what are the top 5 topics that he talks about? Throw it in a chat GPT, see if it gives something back. If so, then whenever I pick up the phone and call Ben, hey, I know that you write a lot about AI. That is a passion of mine too. Bam, I've got that connection, I've got that book. So I think that it's just, like I said, getting over that mental thing of even I had a chat GPT that's just for developers. No, it's not. Not at all.
If you want a good laugh, I discovered this week that ChatGPT for your iPhone is one of the best voice transcription programs ever.
That's good because Siri sucks, man.
It is awesome. So that's my little like,
I have to. I, I learned something. I'll have to do it because people will know whenever I'm talking through my watch because it won't make any kind of sense.
yeah, no, like use the iOS app for ChatGPT. It's phenomenal.
Downloading it now.
So, if you're a recruiting leader, you have a team of
hmm
recruiters.
hmm
How do you, one, teach where the recruiters how to start using artificial intelligence, and how do you start implementing the AI to help them become super powered recruiters?
Um, it's leading the horse to the water. Okay. I love some of the tenets of design thinking is really what is the problem? A lot of times you think you're solving the problem, but you're not actually solving the problem. The step before that is helping people understand that there is a problem. So what I like to do is kind of go through like a journey map of the recruiting process from a recruiter standpoint, not from a candidate standpoint. So let's document it all. What part do you hate? Oh, this part over here. Why do you hate it? It's mundane. Okay, well, why is it mundane? So it's asking those five whys to get to the root. And the root of it is because it's time consuming and it keeps me away from actually being able to interview and find the right people. Okay, well, what if we automated this? Oh, that'd be great. Okay, cool. Well, let's explore ways that we can do it. And I find that kind of digging into what's bothering them helps them adopt something a lot quicker than going, we're going all AI. I mean, if I said that on, I'm just thinking of the team that I led at the bank, got 48 recruiters that said, we're going all in on AI. I would have lost all but maybe 12 of them, mentally. They would still have worked there, but they would have been like, let y'all do the AI thing. I'm still going to type stuff out. But if I went through and I said, all of us hate, because we had an applicant tracking system that was thrown on us that just sucked and it made us do a lot of manual processes. If I would have gone through that and said, this is a manual process on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does it suck? 10. Okay, fantastic. What if I told you that we can do an AI thing that will fix this? I would have I mean, their eyes would be glued, ready to learn. So that's what I would encourage leaders is to scratch an itch before you try to just do a mandate, because then they'll do. If you go, we're going all in on AI, then they'll go, oh, this is a fad. Trent will change his mind, or he'll forget. His ADD will kick in, and we'll be on something else next week. But if they know that you're actually trying to help them solve a problem, you get a hell of a lot more buy-in.
I definitely love that approach because, sometimes as a leader, I have what we call shiny object syndrome, and I'm like, hey, we can
Oh,
use
me
this.
too.
We can use it. Okay, good. I'm not alone.
No, you're not alone. No, that's why I write things down. Like if you saw my Notion, I've got an inbox of just things that I've got to get out of my head. Um, it's probably 42 things to, but I mean, I like it because sometimes they were great, and sometimes I go look at them and go, well, I didn't even think that's stupid. But no, I suffer from that. And I drag
Oh,
all kinds of stuff. Let's try this.
I love Notion, but check out Mem AI. You can download your Notion into it and like include videos, books, all that fun stuff, and like it pulls data from that.
Look at you. See, we're doing this AI swap of knowledge. I knew this would be the best hour of my day. I love it. Now I do like
Well,
how Notion. I mean, that's another place where like it's not necessarily recruiting focused, but a lot of recruiters take notes, or they want something in there. Notion's got some really great prompts that's built off of ChatGPT that you can use and you can leverage. I use it for ideation. uh, Take points one, two, and three and expand. And it goes in and it pulls in all the different information. So I don't have to do the research. That's another easy, quick way. That's a time saver for me. And it's good insight because it's going to pull information that I won't have access to or think to go get.
I think that's one of the going to be the big differentiators over the next, I would say, 2 years is people, and this is personal opinion, people using AI to really expand their knowledge, become a superpower, superhuman, versus those
hmm
that I don't want to say don't, but like they're going to get left behind. Am I like
Yes.
worried in saying that?
Well, I think they'll be outproduced is the probably a little bit more of the term,
Okay.
is someone who will be able to leverage AI to do things more efficiently so that way they can focus on the things that really bring the value add to the company. They'll be seen as more productive than those that go, I'm doing it the same way that I did it 10 years ago. I don't care the time has changed. Um, just another like quick example is ChatSonic is a Google plugin for Gmail. Gmail, I love how it truncates all the emails, but I have a rule. If it's more than 4 lines, pick up the phone and call me because I'm not reading your email. I'm going to call you. But there are times where you need it because I'm over HR, so there are times that I need it for documentation. But it's like 20 pages of emails or whatever. ChatSonic, it's got two different things. One, you can go in and it says create a timeline. So rather than reading the whole email, I just read through the timeline, kind of get the high level points, and then I click the next tab and generate a response and say, I need this polite because I'm not feeling polite today. So I want you to write this politely. It's got casual, funny, polite, formal. So I can hit formal, hit main points, 1, 2, and 3, generate. And then I go through and I'm looking at something else and it gives me something. I regenerate it until I find the response that I like, send it in there, make a couple of edits, bam. I have just read through 27 emails, opined on a response, and made sure that ChatGPT made that I was nice about it because the email kind of pissed me off a little bit. But ChatGPT is taking care of making sure that I sound professional. To me,
And
that's a value.
so, how much time would that have taken before AI versus how much time it took?
How many times I have to read and reread an email because I go and like this is long and I go do something else and start back over. I mean, it probably would have taken me 20 minutes to kind of get through everything and write little notes out versus within under a minute, I've got a timeline. And then I went back and looked at a couple of the emails because I was like, I need to look at some of the details just to make sure that, again, I'm inspecting what I expect, making sure that AI captured everything. And then it generated a response, probably responded and reviewed in a minute and 30 seconds.
So, it could have been 20 to 30 minutes on just like taking care of like one email down to a minute
Yes.
30.
Because it was a meaty topic. It was a very meaty topic, but it saved me an incredible amount of time.
And I do want to caveat onto what you were saying about ChatGPT fixing an email. I think recently I wanted to tell somebody to absolutely just fuck off.
Yeah.
And I prompted ChatGPT, like, here's the email that I want to send, but please add it a little more nicer, but like, I add in these emotions, but keep it professional.
Yes.
Boom, bam,
Yep.
done, and sent.
Yes. Yeah. No, it does help. And two, from a I'm trying to think because you can do this in blog writing. So sometimes I get very verbose and it's not good for SEO. It's not good for readability. So I can actually go into ChatGPT and say, rewrite this, but make it shorter sentences, a little bit easier, or explain this to a high schooler. And it goes in and it takes, I don't lose any of the content. It just rewords it in a way that's maybe easier to use. So that's for blog, but I can also use it because, we've got a huge base of our employees in Latin America. I can't be overly verbose. It's not fair. I mean, English is a second language. They're at least meeting me 75% of the way. I can't even speak as well as in Spanish as they will do in English. I want to make sure that whenever I send something, it's easy for them to read. So I'm thinking about them. I'm using ChatGPT to make sure that I'm being a lot more inclusive. So it's just those are just little bitty things that I stop and think of going, how can AI help me with this?
Didn't even think about that when you're dealing with international teams. Like, it can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's helped me be a lot more inclusive and a lot more aware. And two, again, I'm going at it from a listening standpoint. Okay, so I go through and I have, oh, this is a beautiful paragraph, and then let's see what ChatGPT does, and it goes in and it rewrites it, and I go, oh God, I'm really got to work on that. Well, I wonder if people that speak English think that I'm overly verbose. So it helps me. It's kind of like like I said, it's like having an assistant that says, "Hey, I'm going to rewrite this for you because your employees are going to just tear this to pieces." But having someone that can do it in under 45 seconds.
So, There are many ways we can become superhuman using AI. When should we not be using AI?
Anything to do with like the actual human contact or something that needs delicate hands. Uh, if I have someone coming to me in an email uh, seeking help for mental health issues, AI is not involved. That's 100% true. I'm there and I am present. Um, Interacting with my team members, they know whenever I use ChatGPT and whenever I don't. Um, Now, what I'll do is I go, hey, I researched this. Here's what ChatGPT says. Here's what I think. So that way they can see both. Um, just trying to think of others. And I guess I struggle with the question because I use ChatGPT so I can focus more on the human element. I think
Okay.
that's why I'm kind of struggling trying to find an actual situation because everything I'm using it for is the mundane, the automation. I need a quick response. I just need to let someone know that I read an email. You know, I mean, think of how many emails you respond to like that. Let me give you a couple of bullet points to say I really read your email, and
I
it's
know.
not really value add.
I think you hit the nail on the head though. Like you're using it for the mundane stuff, so that way you could be human for the human
Hmm.
things.
Yeah, I want my energy because people forget your focus and your energy and your time are limited resources during the day. People think, oh, I'll have another cup of coffee or I'll take a bang or a 5 hour energy drink and I get more energy. No, all you're doing is you are depleting energy from later on in your body. Your body can only do so much. You can only focus so much and you only have so much time. Those are three things. Add money and my daughter to that, those are the things that I protect and I protect fiercely. You know, you're not going to put something on my calendar without having an agenda in there. If you don't have an agenda, I'll decline it because that is my calendar. That is not a to-do list that you have access to. So let's kind of set those boundaries. What I like with ChatGPT is it allows me to keep my energy and my focus and my time focused or pointed to what my primary function is at the organization, and it's everything to do with people.
Awesome.
So I can spend my time focusing for 45 minutes or an hour trying to research some crazy ass topic, or I can let ChatGPT do it and I go and I focus that 45 minutes or an hour on something engaging one of the employees for Hatchworks. And I'm
I love
always
that.
going to do the latter.
I love that. Now, flipping gears for the
All right.
listeners that have not heard you before, sprint recruiting. I,
Yes.
excuse my language, fucking love it, and I wish I ran across this years ago when I was an internal recruiter.
Me too. Me too.
Can you explain sprint recruiting?
All right. So let's talk about the four dysfunctions of recruiting. One, everything's a priority, which means nothing's a priority. I call this chicken little. This is your managers that think that today, point A, you've got to get point A filled, and by the end of the day, point B is now the new priority, and you just wasted an entire day trying to look for point A, which they closed point A to be able to find point B. All right, that's dysfunction number one. Dysfunction number two is that candidates get lost in the process because you have managers that want to interview 42 people over the span of 3 weeks, only to go back and hire one of the first three, and then be surprised that the person's no longer in the market because they accepted another offer. The other point three, we're on three, right? Point three is that we don't stop to say what's working and what's not. It's kind of like that Lucille Ball gift that I love so much, where she's in the chocolate factory. Our days are spent just sticking chocolate anywhere in our mouth to keep it off the damn belt, and someone keeps increasing the belt on us, right? And the last one is the feedback loop is non existent. It's not broken, it is just fucking not there. So in Sprint, we want four principles to counteract those dysfunctions. The first one is the sprint itself. You've got 400 jobs. The first step is going hiring managers, or let's kind of talk, department leader. You have 400 jobs in your organization. There is no way in hell I can get all those filled today, like you want to. Let's be realistic. But over the next 2 weeks, which ones are the most important that I've got to get filled that are mission critical for you? These 20, fantastic. So the next one is the business defines the priority. So we start with a sprint, 2 weeks. Next is I want you to go and further define out of these 20, I've given you 200 points. I want you to assign a point value and assign like a level of importance to each one of these different jobs. Just those two things alone. I can now say, the hell with 380 positions. I'm focusing on these 20, and guess what? I'm going to work them in sequential order. Then you want to provide a process to make sure that your candidates move through the right way. So we put WIP limits or work in progress limits. Once I get to 5 interviews on my top point role, I stop working on it because I'm waiting on the fourth principle, which is feedback. Feedback, 48 hours, mutual. I send you a candidate, I submit 4 candidates over to you. I'm not going to work on anything with your role until I get feedback, and you have 48 hours to give it to me. If you don't give it to me in 48 hours, my manager is going to get in touch with yours and say, is this still a priority? And if we still don't get any kind of information, then the head of talent acquisition is going to go directly to the head of your department and say, I'm icing this position. I'm protecting my resources. We're going to work on the next one in priority until you get your shit together. And that's just kind of how it works. It's nice. It's a well-oiled machine. And at the end of the sprint, you can start looking at, we were given 200 points. We closed 160 of them. We hit 80%. 80% of the last 2 weeks, my team in recruiting spent its time focused on your top priorities and how you define success. It changes the paradigm, and recruiting begins to tell its own story versus the line of business or your clients kind of developing their own story. And I mean, let's just face it, 60% of the time is to cover their own ass at our expense. Recruiting, whenever I train people in agile recruiting, both with the hiring managers and with the recruiters, I said, let me warn you, there's nowhere to hide. Recruiters, if you're not doing your job and you're filling all these roles that don't have points, I'm going to ask you, why are you taking the easy way out? Why are you not listening to what your client's saying? Managers, if we could have hit 180 points, but we only hit 100 because 80 of those points were tied up because you wanted to take your sweet ass time with feedback, guess what? We're going to have a different conversation about prioritization. It changes the dynamics completely.
I love it. So, and like I said, if you want to do a deeper dive, check out episode 40. Also, check out Sprint Recruiting from Trent Cotton, the book. I'll have that in the show notes. Or just connect with Trent. Follow him on LinkedIn. He is constantly sharing stuff that I wish I knew a decade and a half ago.
You and me both, man. You and me both. Whenever we got about a year into it, and I think one of my, just real quick sidebar, one of my favorite stories is I was working with Mara, who was on our team. She handled like the investment, like the retail investment side of the bank. And the head guy had 7 direct reports. They each had 100 points that were assigned to them. We were going through what we call the allocation meeting. That was on a Monday. And they had one division that was private wealth. So higher revenue per client. That particular division had just gotten 10 roles that were absolutely critical for that entire group to hit its group number because, one client could represent millions of dollars versus, 15 or 20 on the other side representing the same. And so we're going through, and the head guy was like, all right, manager number one, you have 100 points. Where do you want them? He said, you know what? I'm actually good. I think it's more important that them in private wealth, I'm actually going to give you my points because we're actually sitting in a good spot. Maura, I'll tell my managers to leave you alone. Ben, one by one by one, they all gave their points as a group. They decided that the private wealth was more important for the next 2 weeks, and then went one step further and basically sent an email to their direct report say, "Leave Maura the hell alone. She's working on a very key project for the bank for the next 2 weeks." And so I remember I hung up the phone and I was almost waiting because Maura picked up the phone and she was, boss, what the hell just happened? I said, I don't know, but I love it. And what was great is that in 2 weeks, these really, really hard roles, she got 8 out of the 10 filled in 2 weeks because she was able to focus. And I knew that that was a top priority. So I had people helping her source and helping her screen and taking some of the operational stuff off of her. So we were able to quickly align. And then in the end of when we did our retrospective with the client, we said, you defined success and we met it. And we would have hit 100%, but the guy didn't accept until the last candidate did not accept until the Tuesday after the sprint closed. But we would have hit 100%. But it was mind blowing. I'm still speechless whenever I think about it.
The managers said deprioritize. Like, what the hell happened?
Yes.
Like weirdest thing
Yeah.
ever.
I know. I know. It was almost like I think I might know because both of us were Catholic. We were like, I think both of us should go to confession today. Something's wrong in the university. That went incredibly well. So it was crazy.
So, like I said, definitely follow Trent on LinkedIn to catch some of the stuff and how to implement it. And you have a new book coming out soon, Future
I do. I
HRist,
do. Futurist. So I want to,
Futurist.
the future of our HR is so overplayed. So it's FUHRIST, and it's the tactical mindsets of tomorrow's HR leader. I'm a nerd. Already said that. Not just with AI, but also with history. I'm always like trying to learn just weird stuff. I have a really huge passion for like military leaders. To me, it's just there's what makes you decide that you want to go and lead a battle, especially like in some of the medieval times. I mean, I watch stuff like watch movies and stuff, and I always tell my fiance, as I tell him, I said, I'm so glad I didn't live back then because I would have been like burned at the stake for being a coward. Going, I'm not doing that, you know. But what I do is I kind of go through and I use the military leader and tell a story about a particular battle or something that talks about a mindset, and then go through and say this is applying the principle, and then do a case study of a business that actually did it. So, as an example, one of the mindsets that you have to have for tomorrow's HR leader, or even today's, is an absolute change management mindset. So, I love the story of Alexander the Great. He landed in Persia, and he was a little worried about some of his troops, so he burned the boats. And one of his generals said, "How in the hell are we supposed to get back to Greece?" He goes, "On Persian ships." And what followed that is incredible innovation because there was no escape for them. There was no exit. So they had no choice but to embrace the change and then innovate and persevere through it. And so, I kind of go through and talk about change management. I actually use Sprint as an example. That was 80% of the time that I am consulting companies on Sprint recruiting. It's not only methodology, it's on how to manage the change on your team and with your client. So there's probably 11 or 12. I'm still finishing it a little bit. But I'm really, really excited about it because it's got some really cool things that like learning about Eisenhower and Patton and Genghis Khan and some of that, you're like, I want to know this, but you get into it and you go, you know what? I can totally identify with that. That makes complete sense. And then to be able to kind of do a deeper dive. So I'm hoping to have that released in the fall. Got a lot going on at business. Actually getting married on July the 29th, and we're going on a honeymoon in August. So I am hoping that we're talk about sprint. I am living personally sprint to sprint. I've got my own little personal board of like, how many points are we on? What do I need to get done? So I'm eating my own dog food per se.
Well, definitely congrats on that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So yeah, look for it. I'm the website. I'm going to be releasing it probably in mid-August ahead of the book. So it'll be the futurist.com or
Awesome.
futurehrist.com.
Awesome. So we're going to move forward to the quick fire questions. And before we get started on that, make sure in the show notes to sign up for the Elite Recruiter newsletter. Going to start finally doing that after 75, 80 episodes. And so make sure you sign up for that. So quick fire questions. What advice would you give to a brand new recruiter just getting started in 2023 on how to be successful in our industry?
Learn the business, not recruiting. Learn the business that you're recruiting for. You need to be able to speak to it like the ultimate goal for you is that the candidate on the other side forgets you're a recruiter.
Love that. Same question, but for experienced recruiters. Recruiters that have been around the block for a bit.
Ooh. Mm, you got me on that. Because usually with experienced recruiters, I'm asking them, what have you learned and what do you need to learn? So it's kind of different to have the question popped on me. Let's
Okay.
come back to that. Let me
Okay.
come back to that one. You got me, Ben. It's not often I'm
Is
speechless. That
there
was good.
is there
One
a
block.
favorite book that has had a huge impact on your career?
Yes, Switch by the Heath brothers. Speaking of change management, it goes through how the brain, psychology wise or psychologically, processes change, and then how you as an individual can embrace change yourself, and as a
Awesome.
leader, lead
Is there a
change.
favorite tech tool that you love at the moment? Maybe outside of ChatGPT.
That's my favorite right now. My other one is ClickUp. It's kind of like Trello or Asana. It's just I like it. It's just easier for me to use. There's some automation stuff in there, so whenever I move things around, leading most of an HR department, there's so many different initiatives that are going through, so I can look at it in a Kanban style of, to do, done, doing, or doing, done. I can also look at it by initiative, so that way I can kind of see, how things are going. So I like the layout of it. And Notion's my other one. Notion's my external brain. I use it for my one-on-ones. I have I have a template, so I can document it, then I export it, I send the notes over to my team members to make sure I captured everything, but more importantly, I
Awesome.
want them to know I was listening.
What do you think has been a major impact on your own personal success? Explain that.
Failure. It is easy to think that you are doing well. And what's that? It's Mike Tyson, I think, that says everybody has a plan till they get punched in the jaw. There have been several times where I thought I was doing incredibly well and realized I was so off the mark. And it made me stop and do a retrospective on myself, to seek feedback from other people and to grow as a result. And also, to failure, when my back is against the wall, the way that personality wise, my best innovation comes from whenever I feel trapped. And whenever I fail, I always feel trapped. And so it's like I kind of get through this pity phase. It's usually 24 hours. And then I get through the 24 hours of mad. And then I get into the fuck you phase. And the fuck you phase is, how am I going to come out of this and come out of it better? And then how am I going to, because I always then switch to, what content can I do to be able to prevent someone else from feeling what I just felt over the last 48 hours or a week or however long it's been? And I do that both
Awesome.
personally and
And that
professionally.
kind of plays into my next question that I absolutely love. Trent, if you like everything that you've gone through, all the experiences that you have, all the life lessons you've learned, if you can go back to the very
Hmm.
beginning of your career and talk to yourself and give yourself advice, what advice would you give yourself?
Keep your foot out of your mouth. That would be the biggest one. The biggest one is to trust the journey. Or whenever I look back over starting out, I complained. I didn't complain. I enjoyed working full time, going to school full time. Not, I wish I would have had a college experience, especially now that my daughter's having one. I was like, what is that like? I don't work full time, but I was always looking for that next thing. And I think whenever I go back and I look and I wonder how many lessons did I miss because I was looking forward too much and not being present and going, what do I need to learn today? But collectively, whenever I look back, everything that I'm doing today is because of some weird move that my career made that I didn't understand at the time. But I just embraced it. Perfect example. I was a banker. I love finance. I love my minor is statistics and finance, so I love numbers. We implemented a new, I think we implemented Vizier. There was another person who came over from the banking side into HR, and he showed it to me. I was like, oh, that's cool. And so I started asking questions. And then I got to be one of the ones that they always go, hey, we're about to roll something out. What do you think about it? And I got to really kind of get headlong into analytics. I was a recruiter, I was just chasing a passion. Now that's one of the things I talk about the most is, how do you lead an organization with data, and how do you build a data practice out of it? So if I had to go back to myself, I would just say, trust
Well,
the
you
journey
just
and be
opened up another
present.
question that I'm going to ask you. Your head focus in a career, but you started chasing a passion while at work.
Hmm.
Like, how do you do that? How do you find those places, and
Hmm.
how do you open those doors, and how do you change the entire trajectory of your career?
Oh, wow. I've always been one uh, intellectually curious, and it didn't do well for me early in life, especially going to Catholic school. They don't really like why. um, so they really don't like it whenever you debate theology. So, growing up, I was always known as the Riddler or the rebellious one because I didn't take things at face value. I had to understand the why. Think my side passions came as a way for me to have an outlet so that way I could survive at work and not be that guy that I wasn't, or the perception of the guy that everybody thought I was in school of, why can't you just take something at face value? So I let that my mind chase all that stuff into the side projects, the passion projects that now have dipped back over into my life because now or my profession because I'm going, well, hang on, I learned this over here, or I talked to Ben and he talked about this particular thing over here, and I did some research. There's actually some implications that I can do here, and the business benefits as a result. And I'm probably one of the weird leaders that whenever I interview someone and they say, "Is it okay that I have a side project?" It's almost a guarantee hire because if they've got that entrepreneurial mindset, everything that they're trying to learn on their side gig, they're going to apply some of the lessons here, and we all benefit from it. So I'm a weirdo.
I kind of want to ask that just because it's a recurring theme that I've seen where these little things that people have taken on at certain points in their life have completely changed the trajectory 10, 15, 20 years later.
hmm And it goes back to one of the other questions you asked me. Why Switch is one of my favorite books. There's a story. I read this in 2010, mind you. So that's what, 13 years ago. I can still remember the story and almost the chapter word for word because it talks about finding the bright spots and it talks about this family that worked for um, a hunger organization that worked in Vietnam, and they were responsible for increasing or decreasing malnutrition from like 87% to 60% in 6 months on $30,000. They get there, the plumbing sucks, it's very rural. They're essentially looking at kids oh, every day who are malnourished. The brain shuts down. But what they did is they started finding bright spots. They found this one village where the kids were not as malnourished. And so they said, well, what's going on there? And then they were able to actually hit their goal because they focused on the one bright spot that had they not shifted their mindset, they would have just left the country and said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And think of the impact that would have had on a young child's life. So, I mean, as you can tell me getting emotional, that sticks with me. Whenever my brain starts looking at all the negatives, I force myself and say, there's a bright spot somewhere. And whether it's my career trajectory, whether it's a problem or a solution, it's looking for the things that no one else sees and then blowing them up and
Awesome.
saying, how do we scale it?
Well, Trent, once again, thank you for coming back on the podcast. You know, recruiters
Anytime.
get on the HR or get on the AI bus because it is going to super empower you, make you so much more efficient, save you so much more time,
hmm
give you more time to spend with your family, even that, and also more time to have like great relationships with candidates, clients, etc. So, Trent, before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd love to share with the listeners?
Absolutely not. You can actually see you can go to sprintrecruiting.com and under resources you'll see an opportunity to be able to purchase the ebook and definitely link up with me on LinkedIn and be on the lookout for Futurist. I look forward to everyone joining the journey.
Awesome.
Let's
And
transform
for the
HR.
listeners, until next time, guys, thank you for listening. So there's a lot of recruiters that have been in the game for a long time. Like myself, I'm coming up on actually 2 decades. What advice would you give to recruiters to have continued success?
Yeah, I love that question. I would say be humble. I know everybody says be adaptable and learn new things. I do agree with that. But for me, it's like I've been in it now 8 months on my own, 9 months, and I'm realizing every day it's about gratitude. I think being grateful. I think if you've been in this a long time, it just becomes second nature. If you just like crush it every year, or like you have your ups and downs, you just get caught up in the kind of hamster wheel of it. But hopefully you can take a step back and realize how awesome this industry is and how unique it is to have the opportunity to do what you do every day. I think if you've been at it for a while, you might lose that. So whether that's you go for a walk and you reflect on stuff, you do an offsite to yourself and just think and plan and stuff. You gotta you got to pull yourself out of the weeds sometimes and just realize how awesome this is. Like, not every sector in business has the opportunity to do what we do, whether you're an entrepreneur starting something or you're part of a firm that's growing and you're killing it and making a difference on people's lives, and companies that you serve and work with and helping them think through challenges. Like, it's a great industry. And so I would just say reflect on stuff, push pause, and think about how lucky you are that you're in the kind of spot that you're in.
Awesome. Great advice. Has there been a book that's had a huge impact on your entire career?
Yeah. Funny with the chapter thing, I started reading a whole lot more in the past few years. So some that come to mind, some of the timeless ones, like Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, I think those are just timeless books. Some of the more tactical stuff, like Atomic Habits, everybody talks about that. I love that book. Miracle Morning, actually by Hal Elrod. I don't follow the Miracle Morning kind of thing exactly right, but when I read that, it got me thinking, and now I'm up at 5 a.m. every day. I have exactly the same morning routine every day. And it made a huge difference with how I set the day and like plan what I'm going to do and get the energy, exercise, read. So really, that book was cool. It got me thinking, like, wow, like if I just get up before my kids get up, before I hear dad, I need at least an hour, preferably an hour and a half before I hear the word dad. And I love my kids, but I need that time in the morning. And that Miracle Morning book got me to create that morning routine that's really helped me out a lot.
I love that. You mentioned a Man's Search for Meaning. That's the book where he survived the Holocaust, right?
Yeah, it's just an unbelievable story of how you can cope with and thrive through like unimaginable like suffering that everybody went through that. So it's broken up into two parts. Part one is just his sort of story of what he went through, and then part two is more of like, his he calls it logotherapy, about how he views like finding meaning in life. It's super deep, it's super powerful. And it just got you thinking, like, oh my God, can you imagine what the suffering that people have gone through, and puts in perspective, like some of the stuff that, sets people off these days and gets you frustrated. I'm like, well, can you imagine that? And so it helps just sort of ground you a little bit and keeps things in perspective around like gratitude and stuff for what you have.
Awesome. Is there a favorite tech tool that you love right now?
Can you do plural tools, or does it have to be tool? Because my team knows I love this stuff, and I gotta be reeled in sometimes chasing stuff. I think you're probably the same way. I've pinged you a couple times on LinkedIn. Hey, have you heard of this? But I'd say start with non-recruiting stuff. I love Superhuman for email. It's crazy. I think it's $25-$30 a month on an email client, but I'm in email a lot. It's super fast. It's about zero inbox and stuff. So really, really cool email client that sits on top of Outlook or Gmail. I like Evernote. I'm always capturing ideas and stuff, so using Evernote quite a bit. On the recruiting side, tried every ATS and CRM in the world. I think we land on Crelate, and I love Crelate. I think it's awesome, super powerful tool. Sourcewell for automation is really cool and helps scale outreach, personalized. Starting to dabble like Dripify for some LinkedIn outreach and stuff. So always kind of messing around with what's out there. But I think we're at a point like, all right, we want to have the best tools in the industry, build that platform, and then just scale. So I'm trying to hold myself accountable to that.
Awesome.
But it's hard.
So what are your thoughts on the future of recruiting and artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a hot topic. I have not wrapped my arms around quite AI yet. Like I'm kind of like observing, trying out different use cases with chat and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, I just hope that it doesn't water down the industry. And, I just think of my own focus and the kind of talent that we go after. If I were to ask ChatGPT to write me a email sequence and I just copied and pasted that and threw it in an outreach tool, I would get 0% replies. Literally zero. I don't think a single person would reply, because I need that human element. It has to be personalized. I have to show that I've done a ton of research. I know who you are. We should know each other. Here's why. But that can't come through in AI. Maybe some AI expert would challenge me and say, no, you got to input it the right way. And yeah, I don't know if I'd have that debate. because I just, for me, it's like I just love the human element and the relationship aspect of recruiting. It's why, going back to why I started and found this path, it just fits me and my style. So I guess my hope is that that doesn't, ever get diminished. You find little pockets where it can add efficiency, and that could be transcribing notes. It could be, little things here and there. But, if you're just pushing out content or writing blogs through chat, I don't know. For me, that just doesn't necessarily jive. But I'm also sort of the observer mode right now. I'm not all in on it yet. I'm kind of feeling it out and seeing what other people are doing, trying to learn from others, and then take maybe what works for me. But again, there's no prescription of like, hey, you got to do it this way. I know there's probably people who kill it using it, and I'm just not quite there yet. And again, it's the beauty of the industry. You do what works for you, what fits your style, what fits your audience, and that's that should be what you follow.
Is there anything that you can attribute to you reaching your success and where you're at today?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it so many times. I think it's such a relationship industry. I mean, I'm so grateful for the relationships I've built over the years that trust me, believe in me. So it's at the core. It's that. I mean, I think if you're a transactional person who's kind of popping in and out of different clients, trying to get some opportunities and fill some jobs and rolling on, can you get there doing that? Yeah, but it's going to take a whole lot of more grinding and reps and stuff. But if you focus on being a real advisor and a consultant and a extension of their business, which is that's what we do. I mean, we want to represent our clients at the highest level in the market, and they got to trust me, and that starts with a relationship. It doesn't happen from a cold email and one discovery call and saying, all right, let's do this. I mean, these are people I've known for a long time. So it takes time. I think, people starting out, like, you got to plan, you got to really vet, who do I know? Who would take a call from me? Can I get their trust and their commitment to say, hey, if I start this, would you be my first client? Like, I had that conversation and it turned out to be my first client. But I had that proactively because I wanted to say, like, all right, if I'm going to do this and I've got all this at risk, what can I control to my best of my abilities to at least get a shot at success? And so it all just starts with relationships. It's been kind of the theme of this call, but that's what it's all about for me.
Awesome. And this is actually one of my favorite questions. Like everything that you've learned, everything you've done, you've experienced, if you can go back and talk to Pat at the very beginning of his career, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I love that question too. It would be to trust the journey, trust the process, that everything that's happening around you is leading you somewhere. Because when I got into staffing, went up to Chicago, we did some great work. We expanded the team. I was doing deals, making placements, helping others. I actually got let go, and I was not at the time. I was like, I'm not that guy. How did this happen? And so is at a moment in my life where I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I rebound from this? And then it was a sequence of events that if they didn't happen, I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And so a company believed in me, relocated me back to St. Louis. So I had the opportunity, had a really fast start, ended up getting into leadership with them and into kind of a player coach role. That was the opportunity for me to get back to St. Louis, where that's home. So that was a massive deal. If it wasn't for them saying, hey, we believe in you, we think you can be a great addition to our St. Louis team, get you back home, I maybe would still be in Chicago, kind of grinding it out and doing who knows what. But they brought me to St. Louis. And then I got a call from a headhunter about my previous role, about the opportunity. If I didn't take that call, I wouldn't be here. But I luckily took the call, and they caught me at the right time and had a really awesome opportunity. I was in the business insurance world. I met those guys for like 6 to 8 months and met some unbelievable people, had incredible mentors, people that I just had the highest level of respect for. But I dial it back to, if I didn't pick up that call, that simple call, if they didn't call me, if they didn't see my LinkedIn profile, would they have even known who I was? And now the owner of that search firm is a good friend of mine. We share ideas and stuff. And then, so it's just like, you kind of get punched in the nose sometimes and stuff happens and you're like, well, that sucks. But I just believe in everything happens for a reason. You got to just sort of trust it. And you got to just be aware of people around you, situations that are popping up, experiences, and saying, what can I take from that? How can I learn from that? How can this person help me? How can I rebound from this bit of adversity that comes your way, because there are times that were sort of dark where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. But, fast forward a decade later and in a great chapter that I'm having the best time of my professional career. But it's all the steps that it took to get there. Didn't happen overnight.
I love how sometimes life can change with a simple call or a simple conversation.
Right. It's the book somebody mentioned on one of your podcasts, Ed Milet, The Power of One More. Like, I love his story of his dad was an alcoholic and got sober by just one guy at a bar helping him out. And I think there's so much to that. It's just, there's little situations that pop up here and there. It could be a call, it could be a meeting, it could be your next client. You might bump into them at a coffee shop, and there you go. Like, or that person might encourage you to go take a risk and do something. But if you're just not aware of who's around you and what's happening, I think you miss out.
Awesome. Well, Pat, before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd love to share with the listeners?
I don't think so. We covered so much. And again, thanks so much for this platform and for doing what you're doing. If anybody wants some wisdom or wants to pick my brain, connect me on LinkedIn. If you're considering starting it up, I was in your shoes and probably were thinking all the same things you're thinking. So happy to share some ideas and connect if that adds value. So want to try to give back just like you do. So thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming on. I love the conversation that, you were able to share. It just, so many people deal with the, should I stay solo? Should I grow? Should I start my own firm? Should I make that leap? Or, even I got laid off and you talked about how your life changed and going to back to St. Louis. So many people are going through those exact same circumstances. So I'm so glad that you're able to share, Pat, with the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Happy to do that. So thanks for the time.
Awesome. And for the listeners, until next time.